It's just not in our budget, Delilah. My brother Fletcher's voice crackled over the phone, stress evident in his tone. We've already cut the guest list twice, switched to a buffet instead of a plated dinner. And Penelope's wearing our grandmother's restored dress instead of buying new. I tucked the phone between my ear and shoulder as I continued chopping vegetables for dinner in my apartment kitchen. What about Penelope's parents? I thought they were contributing. Fletcher sighed. They're covering the venue and the photographer. Those were their priorities. And yours? At this point? Just making it happen without going into debt. He laughed, but it sounded hollow. I never thought wedding cakes could cost more than my first car. My brother had always been practical about money, a trait we'd both inherited from our father, who'd raised us on his teacher's salary after our mother passed away when I was 12 and Fletcher was 10. Now at 32, Fletcher worked as an environmental scientist at a nonprofit, passionate about his work but certainly not wealthy. His fiancée Penelope, a kindergarten teacher, was similarly dedicated to a meaningful but modestly compensated career. How much are we talking about? I asked, setting down my knife. The bakery Penelope loves is asking $3,000 for what we want. The design includes these sugar flowers that apparently take days to make, and $3,000? For cake? I interrupted, genuinely shocked. I know, right? But you should see Penelope's face when she talks about it. It's the one thing she's really set her heart on for the wedding. His voice softened. Her parents got married at City Hall, so she never got to see them have a real wedding. I think this cake represents something beyond just dessert to her. I leaned against my kitchen counter, already knowing where this conversation was heading. As the older sister with a successful career in software development, I'd often been in a position to help Fletcher financially through college, when his car needed major repairs, and with the security deposit on his first apartment with Penelope. You want me to help with the cake? I said. It wasn't a question. I wouldn't ask if there were any other option, Fletcher said quickly. We've gone through the budget a dozen times. We're already doing the flowers ourselves and having friends. DJ instead of hiring someone? I thought about my brother. Always kind, always grateful, never asking for more than he truly needed. And Penelope, who had brought a gentle warmth to his life after years of him being alone. They were good together, supportive of each other's dreams while remaining grounded in reality. I'll cover the cake, I said. Consider it my wedding gift to you both. The whole thing? Fletcher's voice rose in surprise. Delilah, that's too much. We were hoping maybe you could contribute part of the whole thing, I confirmed. You two deserve to have at least one element of the wedding that feels luxurious without stress attached. His relief was audible. I don't even know what to say. This is incredibly generous. Just send me the bakery's information and I'll handle it directly. One less thing for you to worry about. After we hung up, I finished preparing my solitary dinner, reflecting on my decision. $3,000 wasn't a small amount, but I could afford it. My promotion to senior developer last year had come with a substantial raise, and I lived relatively modestly. No partner or children to support, just myself and my rescue cat, Pixel. The following week, I met with Mira, the owner of Confectionery Dreams, to finalize details and pay the deposit. The bakery was a charming storefront with the scent of vanilla and butter hanging in the air. Mira showed me sketches of the cake. Penelope had fallen in love with the 4-tier creation with delicate sugar flowers cascading down one side, reflecting the wildflower theme of their outdoor wedding. Your brother and his fiancée have exquisite taste, Mira commented as she processed my credit card. These handcrafted flowers take my assistant and me nearly 3 full days to complete. It's certainly a work of art. I agreed, signing the receipt for the 50% deposit. Will you be participating in the tasting session next month? She asked. I hadn't considered that. I'm not sure. That seems like something the couple should do. We encourage the person paying to attend as well, Mira said with a warm smile. After all, you should have some say in what you're purchasing. Something about her assumption bothered me slightly, though I couldn't quite identify why. I'll check with them, I said noncommittally. When I called Fletcher that evening to tell him the deposit had been paid, he was effusive with gratitude. Penelope literally cried when I told her. She wants to take you to lunch this weekend to thank you properly. That's not necessary, I said, though I was touched by the gesture. She insists. You know how she is once she gets an idea in her head. I did know. Penelope was sweet but determined, a quality that made her excellent with 5-year-olds and occasionally exhausting for adults. Fine, tell her Saturday works for me, I agreed. And Fletcher? Mara mentioned a cake tasting next month. She suggested I attend. Oh, he sounded momentarily surprised. I guess that makes sense since you're paying. I'll check with Penelope and let you know. After we hung up, I sat on my couch with Pixel purring in my lap, a familiar sense of being simultaneously included yet separate washing over me. It was a feeling I'd grown accustomed to as the single sibling, the one whose life didn't follow the traditional path of partnership and family. I was happy to help make Fletcher and Penelope's wedding special. Truly. I just hoped my contribution would be acknowledged as more than merely financial, that they understood the gesture came from love, not obligation. What I couldn't know then was how this generous offer would ultimately lead to one of the most uncomfortable moments of my life, standing in a reception hall surrounded by celebrating guests, invisible despite the $3,000 cake that everyone was admiring. Saturday lunch with Penelope was pleasant enough. She hugged me tightly upon arrival. At the trendy farm-to-table restaurant she'd chosen, her enthusiasm genuine, if somewhat overwhelming. At 30, Penelope had the energy of someone much younger. An asset in her kindergarten classroom, but occasionally exhausting in social settings. "I still can't believe you're doing this for us," she gushed as we settled into our table. Her curly hair was pulled back in her signature messy bun, a few tendrils escaping around her heart-shaped face. "That cake is going to be the centerpiece of the reception. Everyone will be talking about it." "I'm happy to help," I said, unfolding my napkin. "Fletcher mentioned it was important to you." Her expression softened. "It really is. My parents eloped at City Hall when my mom was pregnant with me. No dress, no flowers, definitely no fancy cake. Mom always said she didn't regret it, but I caught her watching wedding shows sometimes, sighing over the things she missed. The personal connection made the extravagant cake make more sense. And your mom? She's excited about the wedding?" "Beyond excited. She's been addressing invitation envelopes in her perfect calligraphy and helping me make the table runners. Dad pretends to be overwhelmed by it all, but I caught him practicing our father-daughter dance when he thought no one was home." Her smile was radiant as she spoke about her parents. I felt a familiar pang, the bittersweet ache that accompanied thoughts of my own mother, gone 20 years now. What would she have thought about Fletcher's wedding? Would she have been addressing envelopes and practicing dances too? "That's really lovely," I managed, pushing the melancholy aside. "They sound wonderful." "They are. And they're so excited to finally meet you at the wedding. I've told them all about Fletcher's brilliant big sister." She leaned forward conspiratorially. "Though I may have oversold your cooking skills based on that Thanksgiving dinner you hosted." I laughed. "That was mostly catering with strategic homemade additions to make it look impressive." "Well, your secret is safe with me." She winked, then grew more serious. "Fletcher mentioned the bakery invited you to the tasting?" I nodded, but I told him it should be your decision. "It's your wedding cake." "Actually," Penelope fidgeted with her water glass, "I was hoping you would come with us. Fletcher is, well, he's wonderful, but his palate isn't exactly sophisticated. Last week he told me my homemade pasta sauce tasted exactly like the jar stuff, but better somehow." It was such a Fletcher comment that I couldn't help smiling. Not exactly a refined culinary critic. "Exactly. And since you're making this incredible gesture, I'd value your input. 3 perspectives are better than 2, right?" Put that way, it was hard to refuse. "If you're sure I won't be intruding, I'd be happy to join." "Wonderful." She clapped her hands together. "It's set for June 10th at 2 p.m. Mark your calendar." The tasting, when it arrived, was far more elaborate than I'd expected. Mira had prepared 6 different cake flavors, 4 filling options, and 3 frosting variations for us to try in various combinations. The small bakery's tasting room was intimate, just a round table with 4 chairs and elegant place settings. "The 4th setting is for my assistant," Mira explained as we entered. "She'll be joining us shortly to take notes on your preferences." Fletcher, Penelope, and I sat together, sampling delicate forkfuls of vanilla bean cake with raspberry filling, chocolate espresso with salted caramel, lemon with blueberry compote, and more exotic combinations like Earl Grey cake with lavender honey buttercream. "Oh my goodness," Penelope moaned after tasting the champagne cake with strawberry mousse. "This is transcendent." Fletcher nodded enthusiastically, his mouth full. After swallowing, he added, "Really good. Like, really, really good." I hid my smile behind my napkin. Penelope had been right about his limited culinary vocabulary. "What do you think, Delilah?" Mira asked, turning to me. "You've been thoughtfully quiet." "The champagne cake is exceptional," I agreed. "But I think the lemon with blackberry might provide a more interesting contrast for guests." Expecting traditional wedding cake flavors, Mira's eyes lit up. Exactly what I was thinking. The acidity of the lemon balances the sweetness of the blackberry, creating a more complex flavor profile. Penelope looked between us, considering. I do love the champagne cake, but Delilah's right. The lemon would be unexpected in the best way. What if, I suggested, you did different flavors for different tiers? The largest tier could be the crowd-pleasing champagne cake, but the tier you and Fletcher cut could be the more adventurous lemon blackberry. Mira clapped her hands together. Perfect. Best of both worlds. Fletcher nudged me appreciatively. See, this is why we needed you here. Penelope and I would have spent 3 hours debating and still not reached such an elegant solution. The rest of the tasting continued in this collaborative spirit, with decisions about frosting texture, silky Italian meringue, buttercream, and decorative elements. The sugar flowers would include blackberries to tie in with the filling, made harmoniously among the three of us. As we were leaving, Mira pulled me aside briefly. It's refreshing to see such family involvement. Often, when someone other than the couple is paying, there's tension about creative control. Penelope and Fletcher have great taste, I said. I'm just happy to help make their vision possible. Well, they're lucky to have you, she replied warmly. Driving home afterward, I felt a quiet satisfaction. The afternoon had been surprisingly enjoyable and, for once, my role hadn't been merely financial. My opinions had been valued, my suggestions implemented. Perhaps this contribution to their wedding would be different, not just another check written, but a genuine collaboration. I should have known better than to get my hopes up. The pattern had been established long before, and as the wedding approached, familiar dynamics would reassert themselves in ways I couldn't yet anticipate. As summer progressed, wedding preparations intensified. My interactions with Fletcher and Penelope became increasingly focused on logistics rather than connection. Our weekly sibling dinners, a tradition since Fletcher moved back to the city 3 years ago, dwindled to brief coffee meets where conversation inevitably centered on flower arrangements, seating charts, and vendor contracts. I'm so sorry to cancel again, Fletcher said during one such coffee, checking his watch repeatedly. Penelope's meeting with the venue coordinator ran long, and we need to finalize the table assignments tonight. It's fine, I assured him, though a small part of me felt the loss of our regular time together. The wedding's only 3 weeks away. I understand things are hectic. He looked relieved. You're the best. Oh, I've been meaning to ask. Penelope's cousin Jade is flying in from Seattle the day before the wedding. Any chance she could stay at your place? The hotel block is completely full and our apartment is going to be chaos with Penelope's parents staying there. I hesitated. My one-bedroom apartment wasn't really set up for guests. I suppose she could take the sofa. Actually, would you mind taking the sofa? Jade has back issues, and a proper bed would really help after the long flight. I stared at him, momentarily speechless. He wanted me to give up my bedroom to a stranger in my own apartment? Fletcher must have sensed my surprise. It would only be for 2 nights, and it would really help us out. There it was again, the assumption that my time, space, and comfort were less important, more flexible, more available for sacrifice than anyone else's. Was it because I lived alone? Because I didn't have a partner whose plans and preferences needed consideration? I'm sorry, Fletcher, but that won't work for me, I said finally. I'm happy to offer Jade my sofa, but I need my bedroom. Especially with the wedding that weekend, I'll need somewhere private to get ready. A flicker of annoyance crossed his face. It's just 2 nights, Delilah. For family. Jade isn't my family, I pointed out gently. She's Penelope's cousin who I've never met. Well, she's going to be family. After the wedding, I took a deep breath. My sofa is available. My bedroom isn't. That's my boundary. After a moment of uncomfortable silence, he nodded stiffly. I'll let Penelope know. She figures something else out. The interaction left me unsettled. It wasn't like Fletcher to be so dismissive of my feelings. But as the wedding approached, I'd noticed subtle shifts in his behavior, a new tendency to prioritize Penelope's extended circle over our own relationship, an assumption that I would fill whatever gaps emerged in their planning. 2 weeks before the wedding, Mira called to confirm the final details for the cake delivery. Everything is on schedule, she assured me. The sugar flowers are nearly complete, and they're looking extraordinary. The team will deliver and assemble at the venue at 2 p.m. on the wedding day, plenty of time before the 5 p.m. reception. Perfect, I said. Is there anything else you need from me? Just one thing. We like to include a small card with the cake, acknowledging who gifted it. Would you like it to say with love from Delilah, or is something more formal? The question caught me off guard. I hadn't considered being publicly credited for the cake. I'm not sure. Let me check with Fletcher and Penelope. They might have preferences about that. When I texted Fletcher about the card, his response was swift. No need for that. We're thanking everyone in our speeches. It seemed reasonable enough. A card might look ostentatious, and I certainly hadn't contributed to get public recognition. Still, something about the dismissal nagged at me. The week of the wedding arrived with a flurry of last-minute errands, though not officially part of the wedding party. Penelope had chosen childhood friends and cousins as bridesmaids. I found myself drafted into service, addressing forgotten place cards, picking up Fletcher's altered suit, and delivering welcome baskets to out-of-town guests' hotels. "I don't know what we'd do without you," Penelope said when I dropped off the suit. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes despite her naturally buoyant energy. "You've saved us so many times this week." "Happy to help," I said, meaning it despite my fatigue. "How are you holding up? Honestly, I'll be relieved when it's over." She laughed shakily. "Everyone says your wedding day flies by in a blur. I'm counting on that at this point." I gave her shoulder a reassuring squeeze. "It's going to be beautiful. And at the end of the day you'll be married to Fletcher. That's what matters." Her expression softened. "You're right, and we're so lucky to have you supporting us." She hesitated, then added, "I hope you know how much we appreciate everything you've done. The cake, all these errands. It means the world to us." The simple acknowledgement warmed me. Perhaps I had been overthinking things, seeing slights where there was only the natural stress of wedding planning. The night before the wedding, I carefully laid out my outfit, a deep teal dress I'd splurged on for the occasion, with matching heels and the pearl earrings that had belonged to our mother. Though not a bridesmaid, I wanted to look special, to honor my brother's important day with appropriate care. As I fell asleep, I felt a mixture of emotions: excitement for Fletcher, a touch of melancholy at this milestone that underscored my own different path, but mostly a sense of anticipation for the celebration ahead. Whatever tensions had arisen during planning would surely dissolve in the joy of the actual event. I had no way of knowing that the most uncomfortable moment was yet to come. It's public oversight that would force me to reconsider not just my role in the wedding, but in my brother's life moving forward. Woodfield Gardens transformed into a storybook setting for the ceremony: white chairs and neat rows, a floral arch where Fletcher would soon make his promises to Penelope, and perfect weather blessing the occasion. I was seated in the front row on the groom's side, though only after correcting an usher who initially tried to place me in the third row. The ceremony unfolded beautifully, with Fletcher's voice breaking during his vows and Penelope's father dabbing at tears. I found myself reaching for tissues several times, happy for my brother, while silently missing our mother who should have been beside me. At the reception, the cake stood prominently near the dance floor, exactly as we had designed it. Guests admired it openly as they entered, many taking photos of the cascading sugar flowers and elegant tiers. My assigned seat, however, was not with family but with Fletcher's work colleagues, people I barely knew. When I quietly inquired, the coordinator explained, "The head table is just for the wedding party, and the family table is at capacity with the parents and grandparents." I nodded and took my seat, determined not to let this arrangement dampen my spirits. The environmental scientists at my table were pleasant enough company as dinner was served and wine poured. Then came the speeches. After heartfelt words from the maid of honor and best man, Penelope stood gracefully in her grandmother's restored gown. "Before we cut this gorgeous cake and really get this party started," she began, "Fletcher and I want to thank everyone who helped make today possible." She meticulously listed contributions both significant and small. Her parents for the venue and photographer, Fletcher's father for the rehearsal dinner, her aunt who arranged the flowers. Even the cousin who merely lent her a bracelet as something borrowed received specific acknowledgment. I found myself glancing at the cake, my substantial contribution conspicuously absent from her growing list of thanks. Perhaps Fletcher would mention it when he spoke? And finally Penelope concluded, "A special thank you to the team at Wildflower Catering for this amazing meal, and to Confectionery Dreams for our spectacular wedding cake. We couldn't imagine a more perfect day." Fletcher's subsequent speech focused on the wedding party and their parents. Neither of them mentioned me at all, not for the cake, not for the countless errands, not even a general acknowledgement as his only sister. The omission was too complete to be accidental. Around me, guests continued enjoying dessert, unaware of my internal distress as the cake I had paid for was being praised, with compliments flowing to the newlyweds for their exquisite taste. When they eventually reached our table during their rounds, Penelope hugged me warmly, exclaiming, "Isn't the cake divine?" "The lemon tare is my absolute favorite." I smiled mechanically as Fletcher asked quietly, "Everything okay, Del?" For a moment I considered confronting him about the oversight. Instead, looking at his happy face, I simply said, "Everything's fine. The cake is wonderful." Driving home alone that night, I felt strangely clarified rather than angry. Sometimes it takes a public oversight to illuminate where you truly stand in someone's life. I would always love Fletcher, but as I greeted Pixel in my quiet apartment, I resolved that my future generosity would flow toward those who valued not just what I could give, but who I was.